Hey lootbags, Reddish here. Today we're going to talk about how you can tweak your in-game settings to get a better experience in World vs. Wild. These optimizations will generally also improve your experience in the rest of the game, so you can take this video as a general settings guide if you want to. This video does have multiple chapters in different sections, so you can just look at the timeline on the video player or go down in the description. There will be timestamps for every single section of the settings that we're going to go through today. Let's go through some of the user interface settings. These will help you do less and see more critical information on your screen. First of all, you turn on AoE loot interact, auto loot auto pickup, and auto loot quick interact. This will minimize the amount of UI you have to look at while looting things. We'll also have auto loot, which will pick up things around you. Do note you have to have 4th provision master ability for this. And if you don't have the ability yet, turning it on now will make sure you get use of it the second you get the ability. Show all enemy names and show all usable object names are settings you want to turn on as well. This will make it easier to spot if something is an enemy and also to spot interactable objects like tactivators inside towers, keeps, and Stone Mist Castle. Show skill recharge. This will show a cooldown on your skills. It just makes it generally more transparent when a skill will be able to be used again. Show simple condition floaters. It's not important to see a lot of small numbers. What you do want to see is how much your conditions are damaging each tick. That's why you should turn this on. It'll bundle it all together so you get one big number. Turn on the thick health bars for your party and show them at all times if you're playing a support build. It'll make it easier to identify people in your party, and it'll also be easier to check how much health they have without having to look in the squad UI. The default camera settings in Guild Wars 2 are quite bad, and we can push them to a more competitive level, so that's what we're about to do. First off, crank up that rotation speed, like all the way up. You want to be able to rotate your camera the fastest you possibly can. If you have a very sensitive mouse, it might be a bit too much. In that case, just turn it slightly down again. But for general purpose, keep it at the highest it can be. Turn up vertical position near, vertical position far, and field of view all the way. These will change the game for you. You will be able to see so much more, and that is absolutely critical as you get into the end game. Pro tip is you can also play around with these to get some super nice camera position for screenshots if you're into that kind of thing. Make sure Enable Camera Shake does not have a check mark. This will cause your screen to shake constantly, and it's incredibly disturbing. To make it more confusing, you want to turn on Disable Player Camera Shake, because this one disables even more shaky things. Also, why is one called Enable and the other one Disable? Come on! As the last thing for the camera, you want to turn off Adjust Camera to Character Height, such that you are not limited by the height of your character in terms of where your camera is placed. This can be a huge help to look over walls and similar objects. Let's take a look at the things that are going to affect you directly while you are in combat and while you are moving. Combat and movement settings. Ground targeting. I highly recommend running this setting on fast with range indicator. This means you can hold down the button off your AoE skill and still move your cursor around to place it. To cast the skill, simply release the button. If you want to cancel it, you can right click. This will make it much faster to cast your AoEs. If you know where your cursor is at all times, then going for the absolute extreme instant cast could be an option too. Instant will place the AoE where your cursor is when you press down the button rather than releasing it. Disable double tap to evade. It is much slower to double tap a key than simply being able to click your dodge button. If you want to dodge into direction, hold down one of your W, A, S, or D keys while clicking your dodge button. This will also help you doing jumping puzzles where you can't accidentally double tap and dodge off a cliff. Lock ground target at maximum skill range. This is an optional one, and it's a quite personal preference of mine. It will make sure that your AoE cannot be moved further away than the maximum skill range. This can help make it faster to cast at a maximum range in certain situations. Allow skill retargeting should definitely be turned on. Let's say I'm casting a target skill with a bit of cast time. With this option on, I can change my target during the cast time instead of it being casted at the old target. The competitive settings are small tweaks that are pretty optional, and opinionated, so this is mostly just a personal preference of mine. Turn on standard enemy models. This will turn all enemies in competitive modes into generic looking enemies. This makes it much easier to identify which profession an enemy is playing as. Set WvW simple nameplates to enemies only. Enemy names will change from Desolation Platinum Recruit to simply being an arrow and a guild tag. I find it easier to estimate an enemy group size with this setting turned on. Okay, and now the settings most people are looking forward to. Remember, these can highly depend on your computer specifications, so make sure you try out different settings and find what works for you. I will try to go through the most impactful ones that you should be aware of. Frame limiter. You should only ever have your frame limiter to unlimited if you have a higher than a 60 Hz display. If you can barely get above 30 FPS, then just cap it at 30 FPS to make sure your PC gets some breathing room here and there. It can help with overheating issues on lower end systems that are being pushed to the limit. Set reflections to terrain and sky. The Guild Wars 2 engine is a bit quirky, and having reflections on the water can decrease your performance even without water around you. This is because every map is built on top of water and that the engine is quite weird. Therefore, we limit this and it will give you a few FPS under some circumstances without affecting the visuals whatsoever. Character model limit is one of the most impactful settings in the game. I run a very high-end CPU, the Ryzen 3900X, and I still tend to have it somewhere between lowest and medium, depending on what I'm doing in the game. This will limit the amount of characters shown on screen. Just make sure to turn on show all enemy names from earlier so you can always see where enemies are, even if their character's not shown. For better performance, keep this as low as you are willing to go. Again, it's going to hide characters, so it's going to put you at a disadvantage, but it will also keep your FPS higher. Character model quality is not a limiter on whether the characters are shown or not, but how many characters are fully rendered with their skins versus how many are shown as generic characters. This can also impact your performance quite a lot. I personally tend to keep it on medium in my settings. Effect LOD is something you definitely need to turn on. Skills in this game can be incredibly beautiful and have amazing effects, but when there's 100+ players casting them at the same time, it's going to result in a ton of visual clutter. By turning it on, particle effects in the game is going to be much more limited, giving you way better visibility of what is actually happening. Alright, we made it to the end and we're through all the settings that I personally recommend for endgame content. If there is a setting that you think is absolutely needed, then post it in the comments and let the community know about it. Because I might have missed one, even though these are the ones I tend to personally recommend all the time. As always, if you like the video, click that thumbs up, and if you dislike it, click the thumbs down. Give some feedback in the comments, and if you have ideas for more videos, head over to my Discord and post it there. There is a link in the description. I try to stream Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays at 17 Central European Time, so make sure you head over and say hi on Twitch TV/Reddish.